Imagine that everything you consider reality was actually designed as a trap. This is not just a metaphor, but a literal mechanism built to hold something precious locked inside you, trapped within this world. The ancient Gnostics of the 1st and 2nd centuries AD claimed exactly this. They believed the earth is not the creation of a loving God, but a prison for immortal souls, constructed by an entity they called the Demiurge. We have analyzed the Gnostic texts discovered in Nag Hammadi in 1945, comparing them with early Christian sources and the philosophical systems of that era. The results are disturbing. In 2,000 years, no one has been able to logically refute Gnostic cosmology. This idea affects each of us directly. If the Gnostics are correct, then every moment of your existence is not truly life, but a process of oblivion. Every desire, every attachment, and every thought about tomorrow is merely a mechanism that keeps you anchored here. Have you ever wondered why life is so full of suffering, why death is inevitable, or why every moment of happiness is so fleeting? The Gnostics found the answer, and this answer changes everything. It explains why the world is the way it is and not otherwise. It reveals exactly who benefits from your ignorance. We did not just analyze the texts, we looked for logical contradictions, historical inconsistencies, and philosophical holes in the Gnostic system. The result was astonishing. Their cosmology explains the paradoxes that Christianity and other religions are at a loss to explain. Why does an omnipotent and benevolent God allow evil to exist? Why do the innocent suffer while the cruel prosper? Why does the very structure of the world resemble a machine designed to produce pain? The Gnostics provided the answer 2,000 years ago, yet humanity tried to forget it. Do you believe the material world could be the creation not of a supreme God, but of a lesser being who keeps us in ignorance? Write your thoughts in the comments, because what I am about to tell you changes our understanding of the very nature of reality. Let us start with the facts. Gnosticism emerged at the turn of the 2nd century AD in the Eastern Mediterranean. It was not a single religion, but rather a network of teachings united by a common idea. The material world is a trap, and man is a prisoner who has forgotten his true origin. The key texts of the Gnostics were lost for centuries after the Church declared them heretical and destroyed most of the manuscripts. It was not until 1945 that a farmer in the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi accidentally discovered a sealed clay jar containing 52 texts. Among them were the Apocryphon of John, Thunder, Perfect Mind, the Gospel of Thomas, and dozens of other works revealing an alternative version of the origin of the world. Gnostic cosmology begins not with God the Creator, but with a higher, unknowable source, which they called the true God, or the One. This God did not create the material world and has no relation to it. He exists beyond matter, time, and space, in a realm that the Gnostics called the pleroma, the fullness of being. This pleroma emanated divine essences known as aeons, pairs of male and female principles embodying various aspects of the divine. One of the younger aeons was Sophia, or wisdom. This is where the key moment of the Gnostic myth begins. Sophia attempted to know the true God without her divine counterpart, disrupting the harmony of the pleroma. Her action gave birth to an imperfect being that could not exist in divine fullness. This being was expelled from the pleroma and found itself in the void. It did not know of the existence of the supreme God and considered itself the only deity. This being is the Demiurge, the false god who created the material world. The Demiurge is described in the Gnostic texts as ignorant and proud. In the Apocryphon of John, he proclaims, "I am God, and there is no other God but me." This phrase almost literally repeats the words of Yahweh from the Old Testament. The Gnostics claimed that the God of the Old Testament was not the true God, but the Demiurge, a deluded being who created the material world as a prison. This was a radical break with the Judeo-Christian tradition. It was for this teaching that Gnosticism was declared a dangerous heresy. But why did the Demiurge create a prison rather than simply an imperfect world? Gnostic texts provide a clear answer. The Demiurge was imperfect, but he possessed creative power inherited from Sophia. He created matter that was dense, heavy, and subject to destruction. In Gnosticism, matter is not a neutral substance, but an active, evil principle. It opposes the spirit, binds it, and blinds it. The world created by the Demiurge was imperfect by definition, because its creator was imperfect and acted in ignorance. The Demiurge was not alone. He gave birth to beings whom the Gnostics called Archons, the rulers of the material world. In different texts, their number varies, 7, 12, or 365. The Archons rule the planets, the elements, and time itself. They are prison guards, control mechanisms that keep souls locked in matter. Each Archon is associated with a specific sphere of existence. One rules time, another fate, and a third passions and desires. Their goal is to prevent humans from remembering who they really are. But where did the soul come from if the Demiurge created only matter? Here the Gnostic myth takes an unexpected turn. Sophia, realizing her mistake, tried to rectify the situation. She secretly placed a particle of divine light, a spark of the true God, into the Demiurge's creation. The Demiurge created man from the dust of the image he saw in the reflection of the divine world, but did not understand what he was doing. Sophia then breathed spirit, the pneuma, the divine spark, into this material shell. Man turned out to be a mixture. His body and soul belonged to the Demiurge and the Archons, but hidden inside him is a spirit alien to this world. This explains the inner conflict that everyone feels. You live in the world, but you feel that you do not belong to it. You strive for something greater, but you cannot name what it is. Desires pull you down into matter, while an inner voice calls you upward to something forgotten. The Gnostics explained it this way: your soul is part of the prison mechanism. It connects you to the world through attachments and fears. But the spirit within you is a fragment of the true God, trapped in a cage. As long as the spirit sleeps, forgetting its origin, the prison works flawlessly. The Archons use several mechanisms of restraint. The first is forgetting.
The Gnostics taught that the soul passes through 7 heavenly spheres controlled by the Archons. Each Archon erases a part of the memory of the divine world. By the time a person is born, they remember nothing of their true origin. They think they were born here and that this is their home. Oblivion is the first lock on the prison. The second mechanism is desires and attachments. The Archons weave passions into the soul that bind it to matter. The fear of death makes one cling to life. The thirst for pleasure chains one to the body. Love for loved ones creates new chains. Every desire is an anchor. Every attachment is another bar of the cage.
The wheel of rebirth is not a path to perfection, as taught in Hinduism, but rather an eternal recycling of prisoners. You die, you forget everything, you are born again, and the cycle repeats. Your memory is erased each time you pass through the spheres of the Archons. The prison works flawlessly. But if this world is truly a prison, why does it sometimes seem so beautiful? Why is there joy, beauty, and love within it? The Gnostics provided a chilling answer. The beauty of the world is the trap. It is a lure designed to make the soul forget about escape. Joy is merely a brief respite between moments of suffering, ensuring that you do not lose hope too quickly. Love acts as the strongest chain because it seems voluntary. The Demiurge is not stupid. He would not have created a world of pure horror from which everyone would immediately want to escape. Instead, he created a world with enough pleasures to make you want to stay, yet enough pain to keep you from asking unnecessary questions. Let's look at this logically. If God is omnipotent and all good, why does evil exist in the world? Christian theology provides an answer. Free will. God gave people freedom, and they chose evil. But this answer only raises new questions. Why did God create a system in which evil is even possible? Why do innocent children die of cancer? Why do earthquakes kill thousands of people who have done nothing wrong? Free will has nothing to do with these tragedies. Evil is woven into the very fabric of the world. Death, disease, aging, predation, and decay. Every living thing survives only at the expense of the death of others. Plants feed on minerals. Herbivores eat plants. Predators eat herbivores. Everything is built on consumption and destruction. The Gnostics saw this as absolute proof. The world was created by an unkind God. The true God could not have built a reality based on such suffering. The Demiurge, imperfect and ignorant, created exactly such a world. He did not understand what he was doing, and his creation reflects his nature, finite, mortal, and full of pain. This is not a design flaw. It is a characteristic of the designer. One might object, what about the beauty of nature, the grandeur of the cosmos, the complexity of life? Are these not signs of divine design? The Gnostics replied, complexity does not equal perfection. A clock mechanism is complex, but that does not make it divine. The Demiurge possessed creative power inherited from Sophia and could create complex structures. But complexity without a higher purpose is simply a complicated prison. Beauty is not an argument in favor of the Creator's goodness. Poisonous snakes are beautiful. Cancer cells have an elegant structure under a microscope. Beauty is a property of form, not content. The Gnostic explanation is logically consistent.
If the world was created by an imperfect God, then its imperfection is understandable. If the goal of the Demiurge is to keep souls locked in matter, then the structure of the world corresponds perfectly to this goal. Oblivion, suffering, death, reincarnation, these are all elements of a control system. Christianity is forced to explain why a good God allows evil, and every explanation encounters new contradictions. Gnosticism removes this problem entirely. Evil exists because the creator of the world is not good. He is not evil in an absolute sense. He is simply ignorant and selfish. Now for the most important part. How did the Gnostics learn about this? Where did they get their information about the Pleroma, the Demiurge, and the Archons? They claimed through Gnosis comes direct knowledge, a revelation from above. The true God could not allow his particles to remain in prison forever. He sent a savior into the world, a being from the Pleroma who could penetrate matter without falling into the trap of oblivion. For many Gnostics, this savior was Christ, but not as Christians imagined him. The Gnostic Christ was not born of the Virgin Mary in the full sense. He was not a man of flesh. Gnostics taught docetism. Christ only appeared to be human, but in reality, he was a spiritual being who took on the appearance of a body. He did not suffer on the cross, because suffering belongs to matter, and Christ was beyond it. His mission was not to atone for sins through sacrifice, but to bring the knowledge of Gnosis. He came to remind prisoners who they really were, and to show them the way out of prison. The Christian Church vehemently rejected this teaching. The Church Fathers of the 2nd and 3rd centuries, Irenaeus, Tertullian, and Polycarp, wrote treatises against the Gnostics. In his work, Against Heresies, Irenaeus described Gnostic systems in detail to show their absurdity. But if you read his texts carefully, you can see that he does not so much refute the logic of the Gnostics as insist on the authority of the Church and apostolic tradition. Irenaeus's arguments often boil down to the fact that the Gnostics cannot be right because their teachings contradict what the Church has taught from the beginning. This is an argument from authority, not from logic. Why was the Church so afraid of Gnosticism? Because the Gnostics undermined the very foundation of ecclesiastical authority. If salvation comes through direct knowledge rather than through the sacraments of the Church, why are priests necessary? If the Old Testament was written by the Demiurge, why obey its laws? If the material world is a prison for souls, why build temples and observe rituals? Gnosticism freed people from external authority and placed truth within themselves. For a church that sought centralization and control, this was unacceptable. It is a historical fact that in 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea established canonical Christianity, and Gnostic texts were declared heretical. Their destruction began. Libraries were burned, manuscripts were confiscated, and Gnostic communities were persecuted. By the end of the 2nd century, organized Gnosticism had virtually been destroyed. But before the destruction, someone hid a library in the Egyptian desert, sealed a jar, and buried it. Years later, this jar was found, and we gained direct access to the texts that the Church wanted to erase from history. You may ask, why, if the Gnostics were right, why didn't their teaching prevail? Does victory not belong to the truth? In the 4th century, Christianity became the state religion of the Roman Empire. Emperor Constantine supported the Church, giving it power and resources. The Gnostics were scattered groups with a decentralized structure. They did not seek power, they sought knowledge. When the empire sided with the church, the fate of Gnosticism was sealed. It was not a victory of arguments, it was a victory of force. But the disappearance of Gnosticism as an organization does not mean that their ideas were refuted. Let's examine their main thesis. The material world is a prison for souls. What would we see if this were true? We would see a world in which suffering is built into the very structure of existence. A world in which all living things age and die. A world in which consciousness is trapped in a material body dependent on chemical processes. A world in which every pleasure is temporary and painful. A world in which memory is unreliable and truth is hidden behind layers of delusion. Look around. This is our world. Every person is born into a body that begins to deteriorate from day one. We forget our infancy completely. Our memories are fragmentary and unreliable. We do not control most of the processes in our own bodies. We depend on food, water, air, and sleep. Our brain is an organ that can be damaged by trauma, disease, or chemical imbalance. Our consciousness can be altered by substances, electrical impulses, or injury. We are locked inside our skulls, observing the world through the narrow slits of our senses.
Your consciousness, your thoughts, and your feelings, all of these are held hostage by matter. If the Gnostics are correct, then modern science is simply describing the mechanism of the prison without realizing that it is a prison. Let us return to the Archons. The Gnostics described them as cosmic rulers who control destiny. In the ancient world, there was a deep belief in astrology, the idea that planets influence people's lives and that the stars determine character and future. Gnostics interpreted this through their own cosmology. The Archons rule the planets, and through them, they control human destiny. Every person is born under a certain combination of planets that determines their path. This is not mere mysticism. It is a description of a system of determinism built into the cosmos. Modern society might laugh at astrology, but let's take a broader view. Your life is largely determined by factors you never chose. You did not select your parents, your country of birth, your genetics, or the historical era you live in. You do not control the economy, politics, war, or global epidemics. Your brain operates according to laws of chemistry and physics that existed long before you were born. Your thoughts are shaped by the language you were given and the culture you grew up in. Neuroscience reveals that most decisions are made by the subconscious seconds before you even become aware of them. Free will, therefore, may be nothing more than an illusion. If the Archons are a metaphor for the deterministic forces controlling life, then the Gnostic worldview becomes frighteningly modern. You think you are making a decision, but in reality, your choice is determined by your genes, upbringing, hormones, and random external events. You believe you are free, yet you live within laws established by others. You think you are in control, but a single accident can destroy everything. The Archons are the blind forces of nature and society that push you through the corridors of a prison, creating the mere illusion of movement. The next logical question is, if this is a prison, is there a way out? The Gnostics answered with a resounding yes. The way out is through gnosis. Gnosis is not merely intellectual knowledge, it is a direct experience of the divine, an awakening of the spirit, and a remembrance of one's true nature. When a person receives gnosis, they begin to see the world as it truly is, an illusion,
a theater of shadows, a machine designed to produce oblivion. They cease to identify with the body and the lower soul, realizing themselves as a spirit alien to this world. How does one achieve gnosis? Gnostic texts offered various methods. Some schools practiced strict asceticism. Renouncing material pleasures weakened the power of the Archons. Others, conversely, practiced libertinism, believing that violating the laws of the Demiurge proves his morality is not absolute. A third group used meditation, contemplation, and complex rituals. In all cases, the goal was the same: to break the attachment to the material world. As long as you cling to matter, you remain a prisoner. True freedom begins with the awareness of the prison. The Gnostics taught that after death, the soul possessing gnosis ascends through the spheres of the Archons, but does not stop. It knows the secret names and passwords, the words of power that compel the Archons to retreat. It is not afraid of their threats and does not succumb to their promises. It rises higher, breaking through the 7 heavens and the layers of illusion until it reaches the 8th sphere, the pleroma. There the spirit reunites with the true God, and the cycle of imprisonment is broken forever. This is not paradise in the Christian sense. The pleroma is not a reward for good behavior. It is a return to home, a restoration to one's original state. The spirit does not receive something new. It remembers what it has always known but had forgotten. Gnosis is not the acquisition of knowledge, but the removal of forgetfulness. The prison works through amnesia. Salvation works through anamnesis, memory. The Christian Church taught that salvation comes through faith in Christ, baptism, repentance, and communion. The Gnostics responded, "Rituals are useless if you do not know the truth. You can be baptized 1,000 times and remain imprisoned. You can spend your life praying to the Demiurge and die in ignorance. Salvation is not found in worship, it is found in awakening." And this led to the most controversial statement of Gnosticism: not all people can be saved. They divided humanity into 3 categories. The pneumatics are those in whom the divine spark burns. They are capable of gnosis and inherently feel they do not belong to this world. The psychics are those whose souls belong to the Demiurge, but who can rise through faith and righteous deeds. The hylics, or material people, who possess no spirit, only a body and an animal soul. Hylics cannot be saved because there is nothing in them to save. They are part of the prison mechanism, not prisoners, but guards who are unaware of their role. This is a cruel doctrine, and Christians rightly accuse the Gnostics of elitism. But the Gnostics saw this not as cruelty, but as honesty. Look at the people around you. How many of them ask deep questions about the nature of reality? How many feel an inner longing for something beyond this world? Most are completely immersed in matter: money, career, entertainment, family, comfort. They feel no inner conflict. They are at home in this world. The Gnostics explained it simply: they have no spirit. They were created by the Demiurge and belong to him. They cannot be awakened because they are not asleep. They are exactly as they were designed to be. One might object that this is a denial of human dignity, a rejection of universal equality. But the Gnostics did not create a social system. They described an ontological reality. If pneumatics, psychics, and hylics exist, it is not a question of justice, but a question of fact. Fire is not to blame for the fact that stone does not burn. Spirit is not to blame for the fact that matter cannot rise. To the modern ear, this sounds harsh, but Gnostics lived in a world where equality was not the primary value. They sought truth, not comfort. Let's test this observation. Are there people who never ask themselves profound questions, who live from pleasure to pleasure, from problem to problem, without experiencing existential anguish? Statistics show that most people do not read philosophy, are not interested in spiritual practices, or contemplate the meaning of life. This does not mean they are stupid or bad. They simply do not feel the need for these questions. Gnostics explained it by a lack of spirit. Modern psychology might explain it by temperament, upbringing, or priorities. But the result is the same. Some seek, others do not. Let us return to the main point. If Earth is a prison, who benefits from our imprisonment? The Gnostics answered, the Demiurge and the Archons. But why do they need souls? Some Gnostic texts offer a disturbing answer. The Archons feed on the energy of souls. Suffering, fear, passion, and attachment all generate energy that the Archons consume. The prison is not just a correctional facility, it is a farm. The material world was created not for punishment, but for exploitation. It sounds like a paranoid fantasy, but let's look at the world without emotions. Every living thing lives at the expense of others. The ecosystem is a pyramid of consumption, where each level parasites on the previous one. Plants consume minerals, herbivores consume plants, predators consume herbivores, and bacteria decompose everything. Life is a process of consumption. If the Archons are a metaphor for this principle extended to the metaphysical level, then the Gnostic worldview is terrifyingly consistent. Modern occultism has revived this chilling idea. 20th century writers like Carlos Castaneda spoke of inorganic beings that feed on human energy. Theosophists wrote about astral parasites. Ufologists discuss entities abducting humans for experimentation. These are all variations on the same theme. We are not at the top of the food chain. Someone is using us. Someone invisible, existing beyond our normal perception.
Gnostics were the first to clearly articulate this concept 2,000 years ago. They didn't speak of aliens or astral entities. Instead, they described a cosmic system where matter and everything tied to it acts as fodder for the rulers of this world. In the Gnostic worldview, humanity is not the crown of creation, but livestock. Our lives, our suffering, and our deaths are merely resources recycled in the endless loop of reincarnation. Can we verify this? No, because the Archons, if they exist, operate beyond our material perception. This is the inherent weakness of the Gnostic system. It is unverifiable. No experiment can be conducted to prove or disprove the existence of the Demiurge. It ultimately comes down to interpretation. Gnostics saw the world as a prison. Christians saw it as a testing ground. Materialists see it as the meaningless result of physical processes. Each interpretation fits the facts, yet none can be clinically proven. However, there is a criterion we can use. Which one best explains the paradoxes? Christianity asserts that God is good, yet it struggles to explain evil without contradictions. Materialism asserts that consciousness doesn't exist as a separate substance, yet it fails to explain subjective experience. Gnosticism, however, asserts that the world was built by an imperfect creator. This single premise explains evil, consciousness, and the paradoxes of existence. Logically, it is the more consistent model, though logic is not always synonymous with truth. Suppose the Gnostics are right. What does that change? If you are a pneumatic,
Your duty is to seek gnosis, awaken the spirit, and prepare to escape the prison. If you are psychic, you must follow moral laws and hope for mercy. If you are hylic, you simply don't care because you are incapable of grasping these words. Gnosticism validates the deep longings some people feel. You feel like strangers in this world because you are truly strangers. You aren't broken or mistaken. You are exiles remembering your true home. But there is a darker side to this philosophy. If the world is a prison, why care about it? Why build, create, or help others? If matter is inherently evil, why preserve life, feed the poor, or improve society? This path can easily lead to nihilism. If the world is an illusion, then nothing matters. Early Christians accused Gnostics of precisely this. Indeed, some Gnostic sects practiced extreme asceticism to the point of death, while others turned to extreme libertinism and self-destruction. If the goal is to escape the prison, then suicide might seem like the quickest exit. Yet most Gnostics rejected suicide. They taught that premature death accomplishes nothing. A soul without gnosis will simply return through reincarnation. Suicide isn't an escape, it's just a door back into the same cell. The only way out is through knowledge, and knowledge cannot be obtained by destroying the body. The body is an instrument, a cell, yes, but while the spirit is inside, one must use that time to awaken. Life in matter isn't a punishment, it's an opportunity to remember. This brings up the question of ethics. Do other people, the hylics or psychics, matter to the pneumatic? Should the awakened help those incapable of gnosis? Gnostic texts offer mixed answers. Some schools taught compassion, seeing the divine spark in every being, even buried under layers of matter. Other schools taught indifference, believing everyone follows their own path and intervention is useless. A third school taught active missionary work, believing knowledge must be brought to those capable of receiving it. But generally, Gnosticism didn't build a developed ethical system. It was a religion of salvation, not a religion of social order. Gnostics didn't build hospitals, feed the poor, or create charitable institutions. Their goal was personal, to break free from the prison. Christianity, conversely, created a community. The church cares for its members, helps the weak, and spreads the faith. This is largely why Christianity prevailed. It offered not just meaning, but a sense of belonging. Gnosticism gave truth, but left people alone. The loneliness of a Gnostic is the loneliness of the ultimate outsider. He lives among people, but doesn't belong to them. He sees the world as others do not. He knows that his home is not here, and no one around him understands this. This is the existential alienation later described by 20th century writers like Camus, Sartre, and Kafka. Man is thrown into an absurd world, alien to his nature. Gnostics described this 2,000 years before the existentialists. But unlike them, Gnostics offered hope. There is a way out. Existentialism says the world is absurd, there is no meaning, so create it yourself. Gnosticism counters, the world is absurd because it is not your home. You don't need to create meaning, you need to remember it. There is a true God, there is the pleroma, and there is your original nature. You weren't abandoned by accident, you were imprisoned on purpose, but you can break free. This is a powerful message. It explains pain without using consoling religious cliches. It gives meaning without demanding blind faith. It says, "You are right to feel like a stranger. You are right that the world seems wrong to you. You aren't broken. You are awakening. And this awakening is the beginning of the escape." Let's look at the evidence. The Gnostics claimed that the world was created by the Demiurge, a false god. How can we test this claim? First, if the Demiurge is imperfect, his creation must be imperfect. Our world is full of flaws. The human body is a masterpiece of evolution, but it is riddled with engineering errors. The recurrent laryngeal nerve in a giraffe makes a 4-meter loop instead of a direct line. The retina is installed backwards, creating a blind spot. The spine is adapted for walking on 4 legs, not 2, causing chronic pain in most adults. Evolution explains this by saying natural selection doesn't create perfection, it creates good enough to survive. However, Gnostics might interpret it differently. The Demiurge didn't create according to an ideal plan, but by trial and error, blindly copying the reflection of the pleroma. The result works, but it is full of defects. This doesn't refute evolution, it offers a metaphysical interpretation of it. The second proof lies in suffering. Suffering is built into the very structure of life. Any creature with a nervous system is capable of suffering. Pain is a universal mechanism. Functionally, evolution explains pain as a danger signal necessary for survival. But why does this signal have to be subjectively agonizing? We can imagine a system that provides information without suffering. A computer receives an error signal without pain. Why are biological systems designed differently? Gnostics might answer that suffering is fuel. The Archons don't just control the world, they feed on it. Suffering generates intense energy that serves as food for invisible forces. This cannot be proven, but it explains why evolution chose this particular mechanism. Not because it is the only way, but because it benefits the rulers of the system. The third piece of evidence is forgetfulness. Why do people not remember their birth? Why are memories of early childhood fragmentary? Neuroscience explains this by the immaturity of the hippocampus, but that describes the mechanism, not the purpose. Why does evolution need us to forget the beginning of life? Gnostics would answer, because memory of the past is dangerous for the prison. If we remembered previous lives or states of pre-birth, the control system would not work. Oblivion is a necessary condition for imprisonment. The fourth piece of evidence is death. Why do all living beings die? Evolution explains that death frees up resources for the next generation and accelerates adaptation. But from the individual's point of view, death is an absolute evil. If the world was created by a benevolent God for the benefit of his creatures, why did he build?
To a Gnostic, the answer is simple. Death is a crucial part of the recycling system. The soul must die to be wiped clean and return to a body. Eternal life within matter would be a disaster for the Archons. Prisoners might accumulate too much wisdom. Death erases memory and resets the cycle. Now, every one of these proofs has alternative explanations. Science offers functional reasons. Theology offers religious ones. Conspiracists offer their own. No single explanation is definitively provable, yet the Gnostic worldview holds an unpleasant consistency. If the world is a prison, suddenly everything falls into place. Imperfection, suffering, forgetfulness, death. These aren't bugs in the system. They are features of a control mechanism. They are not design flaws. They are the bars of the cell.
Let's move to the most provocative claim of Gnosticism. The God of the Old Testament is not the true source, but the Demiurge. Let's test this by analyzing the texts themselves. In the Old Testament, Yahweh is described as jealous, angry, and vengeful. He demands blood sacrifices, destroys entire cities, unleashes plagues, and orders the extermination of tribes. He creates humanity only to regret it and drown them in a flood. He tests Abraham by demanding the ritual sacrifice of his own son. He torments Job, a righteous man, simply to settle a wager with Satan. Christian theologians rationalize this through the concept of a covenant, arguing that Yahweh is strict because he loves his people and seeks to purify them. But Gnostics saw these traits as the mark of an imperfect deity. The true God, incomprehensible, infinite, and complete, could not experience jealousy. Why would he? He could not feel regret. Is he not omniscient? He could not command genocide. Is he not the essence of good? Yahweh acts like a powerful but limited ruler, a king, not an absolute. Gnostics pointed to specific verses. In Isaiah, Yahweh declares, "I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil." This is Yahweh's own admission. To the Gnostics, this was the smoking gun. The Demiurge doesn't hide his nature. He openly states he is the author of evil. The true God, who is absolute light, would never claim such a thing. These are the words of the architect of the material world, a place where good and evil are inextricably mixed. You might argue this is a metaphor, that the context is nuanced or the translation is rough. But remember, the Gnostics worked with the same texts as the Jews and Christians. They read the Old Testament not as a revelation of the supreme God, but as the unauthorized biography of the Demiurge. They didn't reject the texts as fake. They reinterpreted them through their cosmic framework. Yahweh exists, they said, but he is not the Father Christ spoke of. In the Gospels, Christ refers to a heavenly Father who is fundamentally different from the God of the Old Testament. Yahweh demands an eye for an eye. Christ teaches us to turn the other cheek. Yahweh commands you to love your neighbor, but hate your enemy. Christ commands you to love your enemies. Yahweh promises material land and blessings for obedience. Christ declares his kingdom is not of this world. Gnostics saw this as confirmation. Christ came to reveal the true God, a being unknown even to the Demiurge. He came not to fulfill the law of the prison, but to break it, to liberate humanity from the power of the creator of matter. The Church eventually combined both covenants, declaring that Yahweh and the Father of Christ are the same entity. But this required complex mental gymnastics. Why does God seem to have a complete personality transplant between the testaments? The standard answer is progressive revelation. God revealed himself slowly. But the Gnostics offered a much simpler, sharper explanation. They are two different gods. One is the Demiurge who crafted the world and dictated the law. The other is the true God who sent Christ to broadcast the signal of truth. This explains the early church's massive dilemma. How do you reconcile the wrath of Yahweh with the love of Christ? Marcion, a 2nd century theologian, solved this radically by rejecting the Old Testament entirely. He argued the Old Testament God was a lesser deity of justice, while the New Testament God was the superior deity of love. Marcion wasn't a Gnostic in the full sense, but his dualism struck a chord. The Church branded him a heretic, yet the problem he highlighted remains. Traditional Christianity insists on one God at the price of internal contradiction. Gnosticism resolves the contradiction by dividing the gods. Logically, it is cleaner. Emotionally, it is terrifying. It implies that the vast majority of humanity is praying to the wrong God. It implies that religions focused on the creator of the world are actually worshipping the Demiurge. The Gnostics would say, yes, and that is why the world remains a prison. The prisoners are worshipping the jailer. Now for the most critical question. If the Gnostics are right, what does that mean for you? Not philosophically, but right now, in this life, in that body. You are sitting in front of a screen, reading this, and somewhere inside you feel either a deep resonance or a sharp rejection. The Gnostics would say that is your spirit reacting to the signal, or your soul defending the prison. Pneumatics intuitively recognize the truth because it wakes up a dormant memory. Psychics waver, caught between belief and doubt. Hylics dismiss it all as nonsense because there is nothing inside them that can tune in to that frequency. So let's look at specific Gnostic practices for liberation, because Gnosticism isn't just a philosophy, it's an escape plan. The first and vital step is awareness. You cannot escape a prison you don't believe you're in. Most people sleepwalk through life, accepting the world as reality and their thoughts as their own. The Gnostics taught that you must first see the cage, not intellectually, but viscerally. You must see the walls, the bars, and the guards. How? Through self-observation. Gnostic texts describe a technique rediscovered 2,000 years later by mystics like Gurdjieff, observing your own thoughts without identifying with them. Sit in silence and just watch the traffic in your mind. Thoughts drift in uninvited. Desires bubble up without your permission. Emotions crash over you like waves. Who is thinking these thoughts? Where do these desires actually originate? Why do emotions control you rather than you controlling them? The Gnostics claimed that most thoughts and desires are external injections from the Archons. They aren't your thoughts. They are control programs beamed into your consciousness. Modern psychology calls them automatic thoughts, cognitive distortions, or unconscious patterns, different labels for the same phenomenon. You do not control your mind. You think you do, but in reality, it drives you. This is the first level of the prison. But when you start to observe, a strange shift happens. You ask, who is the one observing? If you can watch your thoughts, then there is a you that is separate from them. The Gnostics called it the pneuma, the true spirit. Everything else, body, emotions, intellect, memory, these are just shells, layers of the prison suit. The spirit is trapped inside like the core of an onion. The practice of self-observation begins to peel the spirit away from the shell.
Therapists today teach patients to observe their thoughts as if they were clouds drifting across the sky. They come and go, but the sky itself remains unchanged. 2,000 years ago, the Gnostics said the exact same thing. Thoughts may originate from the Archons, but the spirit remains unaffected. If you can maintain this position of the observer, the power those thoughts hold over you begins to weaken. This doesn't mean the thoughts will disappear. They will continue to arrive, but you will cease to be their slave. This brings us to the third level of practice, working with desires. Here, the Gnostics were radical. They viewed desire as a set of chains. Every desire ties you deeper into the material world. You crave food, you are tied to the body. You crave sex, you are tied to the continuation of the cycle. You want wealth, fame, love. All of these are anchors keeping the spirit submerged in matter. The Archons wove desire into the very structure of the soul to ensure that prisoners would voluntarily remain in their cells. But how can one live without desires? Gnostics offered different answers. Ascetic schools taught complete renunciation. Do not eat more than necessary. Avoid sexual relations. Renounce all attachments. This is the path of mortifying the flesh, to break the body's power over the spirit. Other Gnostic schools took the opposite path, libertinism. Fulfill every desire without attachment to the result. Indulge in everything until you are sick of it. The ascetic destroys desire through starvation. The libertine destroys it through saturation. But the middle path is simply to observe the desire without acting. When a craving arises, do not suppress it or fulfill it. Just watch it. Where did it come from? Why does it feel so urgent? What happens if you just let it sit there? Gnostics discovered that most desires are like children throwing a tantrum for attention. If you don't react, they eventually quiet down on their own. The fourth level of practice is the working with the fear of death. This is the strongest chain in the prison. The fear of death makes you cling to life at any cost. It turns people into slaves. For the sake of survival, people are ready to do anything, to betray, to humiliate themselves, to renounce the truth. The Archon uses the fear of death as his primary tool of control. As long as you are terrified of dying, you will obey any rule just to prolong your existence in matter. The Gnostics taught that the death of the body is not the end. It is merely a transition from one form of imprisonment to another. If the spirit does not possess gnosis, it will return through reincarnation. If the spirit has awakened, death becomes liberation. Therefore, fear of death is meaningless. The pneumatic is not afraid of death because he knows that only the shell will die. The spirit is immortal and indestructible. This knowledge isn't intellectual. It is a deep, visceral experience of one's true nature. How can this be achieved? Some Gnostic schools practice meditation on death. The disciple visualized the decomposition of his own body. The flesh rots, the bones crumble to dust, everything material vanishes, but something remains. The observer does not disappear with the body. The spirit continues to exist because it was never part of matter to begin with. This practice severs the identification with the body. When you realize you are not the body's death ceases to be your end. The fifth level is the study of cosmology. The Gnostics insisted that knowledge of the prison structure is necessary for escape. You must know the names of the Archons, their functions, and their weaknesses. You must understand the layout of the 7 heavenly spheres through which the soul passes after death.
This isn't abstract trivia. It is a map for escape. Ancient texts contain spells, passwords, and secret names required to pass through each sphere. The Apocryphon of John describes how a soul possessing knowledge navigates these checkpoints. The Archons stop it, demanding explanations. The soul replies, "I have known myself, and I have gathered myself from everywhere. I have not borne children for the Archon, but I have torn out his roots and gathered his scattered members." The Archons retreat because such a soul is beyond their jurisdiction. It knows who it is, and that knowledge makes it free. Without gnosis, the soul cannot answer, and the Archons send it back to matter. This may seem mystical, but let's look deeper. What are Archons in a psychological sense? They are automatic programs of the mind: fear, guilt, shame, desire, the need for approval. When a person dies, their consciousness goes through stages. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes a similar process. After death, consciousness encounters the domains of wrathful and peaceful deities. If a person recognizes them as projections of their own mind, they are liberated. If they mistake them for reality, they return to the wheel of rebirth. The Gnostic passage through the realms of the Archons is the same concept. The Archons ask questions that test your level of self-knowledge. If the soul knows itself, it passes. If it identifies with matter, emotions, and thoughts, it fails the test. This is not a literal court judgment, but an automatic mechanism. Only that which has been freed from matter during life can pass through the spheres after death. The rest bounces back. The sixth level of practice is the transmutation of suffering. Gnostics were not masochists, but they understood that suffering is an inevitable part of life in matter. It is impossible to live in a body and not suffer. Illness, pain, loss, aging, all of this is built into the system. Christians teach to endure suffering for the sake of a reward in paradise. Gnostics offered a different approach. Use suffering as fuel for awakening. Every moment of pain is a reminder that you are not at home. Every instance of suffering is proof that the world was created by an imperfect God. Instead of cursing the pain or seeking comfort, the Gnostic looks at it coldly. It is a mechanism of imprisonment. It is not punishment for sins, nor is it a test from a loving Father. It is simply the grinding gears of a control system. When you see suffering for what it is, it loses its power to break you. You stop asking why and begin to understand what it is for, to keep you weighed down in matter. It is a cold, harsh view of reality, but the Gnostics believe that only such a view actually liberates. Comforting answers keep you in the illusion. Being told God loves you and everything is for the best is a lie that reconciles you with your prison cell. All suffering is illusory. The world is beautiful. This is another lie that blinds you. The Gnostics spoke the uncomfortable truth. The world is cruel because its creator is imperfect. Suffering is real because matter opposes spirit. There is no higher purpose, no lesson, no secret meaning in pain. There is only the prison and the escape from it. The seventh level of practice is the practice of solitude. The Gnostic is lonely by nature. He sees what others do not see. He knows what others reject. He lives among people, but does not belong to them. Gnostic communities were always small and closed because gnosis cannot be conveyed to the masses. This isn't elitism for the sake of feeling special. It is a recognition of fact. The majority is not ready for the truth. Attempts to impose it only lead to conflict. Therefore, Gnostics practiced secret knowledge. They didn't preach in public squares, build massive temples, or try to convert nations. They gathered in small groups, passed on teachings orally, and encrypted texts with symbols. When the church began to persecute them, they didn't resist. They hid their libraries and went underground. For them, political victory wasn't important. The preservation of knowledge for those capable of accepting it was everything. One awakened person.
Gnosticism appealed to individual awakening, while Christianity proclaimed all can be saved through faith. Gnosticism countered, only those with the Spirit can attain gnosis. The masses needed hope and comfort, but Gnosticism offered them the cold, unvarnished truth. Truth may have lost the battle to comfort, but that doesn't make it any less true. The 8th level is overcoming the morality of the Demiurge. This is the most slippery and dangerous part of Gnostic practice. If the law of the Old Testament was given by the Demiurge, then obeying that law means submitting to prison rules. Some Gnostic sects drew a radical conclusion. One must demonstratively break the law to prove it is not absolute. They ate forbidden foods, violated the Sabbath, and engaged in rituals that were considered sinful. This wasn't moral nihilism for the sake of chaos, it was a spiritual discipline. The Demiurge's law operates through guilt and shame. When you break the law and feel guilty, you confirm the authority of the lawgiver. When you break the law without guilt, you destroy that authority. Some Gnostics went further. They performed actions that society labeled sins, specifically to confront and conquer their inner feelings of guilt. It was spiritual surgery, removing the control program by triggering it. The danger of this path is obvious. It is far too easy to slide from spiritual practice into simple self-indulgence. Libertine Gnostic sects were accused of orgies, incest, and even ritual murder. While most of this evidence comes from their enemies, the risk remains clear. Not everyone is capable of violating morality without falling into immorality. This path is only for those who have already achieved a massive level of self-control and disidentification. A safer option for the same practice is the internal rejection of the law. You can outwardly obey the rules of society, but inwardly refuse to recognize their absoluteness. You don't do this because you are immoral, but because you understand that all morality is relative. The laws of the Demiurge are no worse and no better than other laws. They are simply instruments of control. True morality for the pneumatic isn't about following external rules, but about being true to your spiritual nature. You do not cause suffering, not because it is a commandment, but because the spirit is alien to violence. You do not lie, not because it is a sin, but because lies distort knowledge. The 9th level of practice is invoking the true God. Gnostics taught that, while the Demiurge is unaware of the higher God, the pneumatic can address him directly. This isn't prayer in the Christian sense. It is not a request for help or mercy. It is more like tuning in to a higher reality, a memory of home. Gnostic prayers preserved in ancient texts are full of strange, haunting phrases describing the inexpressible. I came from the light, from the place where light arose by itself. I am part of the light, and the light is part of me. This is not a request. It is an affirmation of identity. The Gnostic reminds himself of who he really is. It is a practice of anamnesis, of remembrance. The more you repeat these words, the deeper they penetrate.
Gradually, forgotten knowledge begins to surface, not as new information, but as something long familiar that was buried under layers of amnesia. The 10th level involves visionary practices. Many Gnostics achieved gnosis through direct mystical visions. For instance, John's revelation begins with him seeing Christ, who appears first as a child, then an old man, then as pure light. Christ says, "I am the Father, the Mother, I am the Son." This is not a literal phenomenon. It is a visionary experience where John perceives the nature of the divine beyond forms. How did they evoke such visions? Some Gnostics used meditation, prolonged fasting, and sleep deprivation. Others likely used psychoactive substances, which were common in ancient mystery cults. Still others achieved visionary states through ecstatic dancing or chanting sacred sounds. The method is less important than the result, the direct experience of reality beyond matter. One such experience can change a person forever. They return to the ordinary world, but they can never unsee what they have seen. The prison becomes visible. Now let's examine the most critical text in Gnosticism, the Apocryphon of John. This isn't just a cosmological treatise, it is a guide to liberation encoded in the form of a myth. The text begins with John, a disciple of Christ, going to the temple after the crucifixion. A Pharisee stops him and mocks him, asking, "Where is your teacher now?" John cannot answer. He flees to the desert full of doubt, and there a revelation occurs. The heavens split open and light pours down. A figure emerges from the light, shifting forms, a child, an old man, a servant. But behind these masks lies a single essence. This is Christ, not the historical Jesus, but a cosmic principle, an emanation of the true God. He tells John, "I will tell you what was, what is, and what will be." And the story of the creation of the world unfolds. The first revelation, the true God is unknowable and indescribable. He is not a personality, not an essence, nor a being. Any definition is limiting, and God is beyond limitations. But in the depths of this incomprehensible source, the first movement of self-knowledge arises. God sees his reflection, and this reflection becomes Barbello, the first emanation, the Divine Mother. From their interaction, the eons are born, divine forces that make up the pleroma. Everything is harmonious until Sophia, one of the younger eons, acts without her pair. She wants to know the true God directly, without an intermediary. This disrupts the order of the pleroma. Sophia cannot grasp the incomprehensible, and her effort gives birth to something imperfect, a being that cannot exist in divine fullness. This is Yaldabaoth, the Demiurge. The Apocryphon of John describes him as having the face of a lion and eyes flashing with fire. Yaldabaoth isn't evil in the absolute sense. He is ignorant. Cast out into the void, knowing nothing of anything higher than himself, he declares, "I am God, and there is no other God but me." A voice from the higher spheres corrects him. "You are mistaken, Samael," which means blind God. But Yaldabaoth neither hears nor understands. He begins to create. From his own substance, he generates Archons, 12 beings who become rulers of the spheres. Together, they create the material cosmos, the planets, the stars, the earth. This creation is imperfect because the Creator is imperfect. The Demiurge copies images he sees as reflections of the pleroma, but doesn't understand their true nature. He creates a form of non-existence, shadows without light. Then the Demiurge decides to create man. The Apocryphon of John describes him as seeing the reflection of the Anthropos, a divine being from the Pleroma. The Demiurge wants to copy this image, but cannot. He creates a psychic human being, a creature of matter and soul, but without spirit. This first man lies motionless, not truly alive. The Archons breathe their power into him, but nothing happens. Then Sophia, repenting of her mistake, secretly implants a spark of divine light into the Demiurge's creation. She breathes pneuma, spirit, into man. Suddenly, the man comes to life. But as soon as he wakes, the Archons realize he surpasses them. He has something they lack, a particle of the true God. The Demiurge is furious. He realizes that his creation is out of control. The Archons decide to imprison humanity in even denser matter. They create a second physical body, a shell of flesh to bury the spirit under another layer of oblivion. They place humans in paradise, the Garden of Eden, which, in the Gnostic interpretation, is not a blessing, but a prison.
To the Gnostic, the tree of knowledge is not a trap, but a tool for awakening. The Demiurge forbids anyone to touch it simply because he wants humanity to remain in a state of permanent ignorance. But then, Christ, an emanation of the true God, enters the material world in the form of a serpent. Yes, in this worldview, the serpent in Eden is not the devil, but the Savior. He tells Eve the forbidden truth: you will not die. Instead, you will become like gods, knowing good and evil. Eve and Adam eat from the tree, and their eyes are snapped open. They see their nakedness, which is a symbol of the spirit's vulnerability while trapped in matter. But more importantly, they begin to realize that something is fundamentally wrong with their situation. This is the first awakening, the initial spark of Gnosis. The Demiurge, flying into a rage, expels them from paradise. He curses the serpent, the woman, and the man. He reconstructs the world to be even more cruel, introducing pain in nature, hard labor, and inevitable death. These are not just natural phenomena, they are punishments for the crime of attempting to know the truth. The Gnostic reading of the book of Genesis turns all Christian theology upside down. The fall is not a descent, but an attempt to rise. The expulsion from paradise is not a tragedy, but a liberation from a golden cage. The serpent is not the deceiver, but the liberator. And the Demiurge is not a loving father, but a jealous jailer. Can we find actual confirmation of this radical interpretation in the Bible itself? Let's take a forensic look at the text of Genesis. God tells Adam, "You may eat from any tree, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat from it, you will surely die." Later, the serpent tells Eve, "No, you will not die, but your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil." So who told the truth? Adam and Eve ate the fruit, and they did not die that day. Instead, their eyes were opened. They learned the difference between good and evil. The serpent told the truth. The Creator lied. One might argue that God meant spiritual death or separation from Him, but the text doesn't say that. It literally says, "On the day you eat of it, you will surely die." That did not happen. Moreover, after the so-called fall, God Himself admits, "Now Adam has become like one of us, knowing good and evil." He acknowledges that the serpent was right. Adam really did become closer to the divine through knowledge. And what does God do in response? He expels him specifically so that he will not eat from the tree of life
and become immortal. Why is God afraid that man will become immortal and knowledgeable? The Gnostics answered, because it threatened his power. Orthodox Christianity interprets this through the lens of obedience. God tested Adam's faith, and Adam failed. But the Gnostic reading reveals a darker logic. The Demiurge wanted to keep people in ignorance and mortality to control them. The Christ serpent brought knowledge, which began the process of liberation. This is not a sin, it is the first step toward gnosis. The history of humanity in the Gnostic myth is a story of war between oblivion and memory. It is a struggle between the Demiurge, who wants to keep souls in prison, and the true God, who sends signals to awaken the prisoners. After the expulsion from Eden, the story darkens. Cain kills Abel, the first murder, the first manifestation of the violence built into the material world. Humanity multiplies and sinks deeper into matter. People completely forget their divine origin. The Demiurge sees that people are becoming evil or perhaps too independent and decides to destroy them with a flood. Gnostics interpreted the flood not as a cleansing of sin, but as an attempt by the Demiurge to erase humanity's memory completely. Noah is the only righteous man, meaning the only one obedient to the Demiurge. He is saved to start the cycle of slavery anew. But particles of pneuma continue to pass down through the generations. Some people feel an inexplicable inner longing for something beyond this world. They become prophets, mystics, and philosophers. The true God sends them visions to remind them of the truth. Messengers arrive in different eras. There is Seth, the son of Adam and Eve, born after the murder of Abel. There is Enoch, who walked with God and vanished because he was taken, a symbol of liberation from matter and the attainment of immortality. There is Melchizedek, a mysterious priest with no genealogy, symbolizing the pneumatic who is unconnected to material lineage. Finally, Christ comes, the highest emanation, the direct intervention of the true God. But the Gnostic Christ is not born of Mary in the biological sense. He does not take on real, corruptible flesh. He appears in the form of a body to communicate with people, but he remains a spiritual being. When he is crucified, only his appearance suffers. The true Christ cannot suffer because he is immaterial. This is the doctrine of Docetism, one of the most controversial Gnostic teachings. Why did Christ need an appearance to bring gnosis? He teaches not everyone, but only the chosen ones, those who possess the Spirit. There were public sermons for the psychics and hidden teachings for the pneumatics. The Gospel describes how Christ speaks in parables to the masses, but explains everything openly to his disciples. Gnostics saw this as confirmation of their structure. Two levels of teaching: exoteric for the masses and esoteric for the initiated. The Church preserved the exoteric teaching, faith in Christ, baptism, repentance, and the resurrection of the body. The Gnostics claim to preserve the esoteric knowledge, the pleroma, the demiurge, and the true nature of the soul. After crucifixion, Christ appeared to his disciples not once as described in the canonical Gospels, but many times, imparting secret knowledge. The Apocryphon of John is one such encounter, where Christ reveals cosmology and the path to liberation. An important distinction: Gnostic Christianity did not reject Christ, it reinterpreted his role. He is not the redeemer of sins through a blood sacrifice on the cross. Sacrifice is useless because the Demiurge has no power to forgive or punish the eternal Spirit. Christ is a teacher who reveals the truth. His death on the cross isn't atonement, it is a demonstration of the illusory nature of matter. The body can be killed, but the spirit remains untouched. This is the ultimate lesson for pneumatics. Do not fear death, because you are not the body. Gnostic Christianity was eventually crushed by orthodoxy, but it didn't disappear completely. Elements of Gnostic thought resurfaced again and again throughout history. In the Middle Ages, the Cathars and Bogomils taught the dualism of matter and spirit, and they were brutally destroyed for it. During the Renaissance, Hermetism and Kabbalah revived interest in esoteric knowledge. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Theosophy and Anthroposophy reinterpreted Gnostic ideas through the prism of Eastern philosophy. In modern psychology, Carl Jung interpreted Gnosticism as the projection of the deep psychology of archetypes. Today, the world is full of Gnostic motifs, even if they aren't labeled as such. Take the film The Matrix. It is pure Gnosticism. The world is an illusion created by the machine Archons. Neo is the pneumatic who awakens and sees the code of the Matrix. Morpheus is the Gnostic teacher, offering the choice of the red pill of truth or the blue pill of oblivion. Agent Smith is the Demiurge, defending the system from those who see its true nature. The film doesn't quote Gnostic texts, but it perfectly replicates their structure. Or look at modern conspiracy theories. The idea that the world is ruled by a hidden elite manipulating the masses is essentially a secularized version of the teaching about the Archons. Reptilians, the Illuminati, the Deep State, these are just modern names for the same forces Gnostics called the rulers of the world. Conspiracy theorists often talk about the awakening of the masses, about opening your eyes to the truth. This is Gnostic language, even if the speakers are unaware of it. Transhumanism is another manifestation of the Gnostic impulse. The idea that the biological body is a limitation that must be overcome.
Transhumanists don't speak of the Demiurge, but they tacitly agree with the Gnostics. The body is a problem that must be solved. Even popular psychology is saturated with Gnostic ideas. The concept of the true self buried under layers of social programming. The idea that most thoughts are imposed by society, parents, or the media. Mindfulness practices aimed at disidentifying from thoughts and emotions. All of these are secular variations of Gnostic self-observation. It is the search for the spirit beneath the shells of the soul and body. Why do Gnostic ideas return again and again? Because they describe a real, visceral human experience. The feeling of alienation from the world, the sense that you don't belong here, and an inner longing for something that cannot be named. The conflict between the heavy desires of the body and the soaring aspirations of the spirit, these aren't philosophical abstractions. They are experiences familiar to many. Gnosticism simply provides a cosmological explanation for these feelings. You feel like a stranger because you are a stranger. However, there is serious criticism of Gnosticism that must be addressed. First, there is the charge of escapism. If the world is evil, why care about it? Gnosticism can lead to social irresponsibility. If matter is an illusion, why protect nature, fight injustice, or help the suffering? It seems better to focus entirely on personal salvation. This accusation is valid for extreme forms of Gnosticism, but not for all. Some Gnostics taught compassion. They argued that if there is a particle of the divine in every person, even if buried under layers of matter, then everyone deserves respect. Helping others is not serving the Demiurge.
It is an attempt to alleviate the suffering of fellow prisoners. You cannot free everyone, but you can reduce the pain for those around you. This is not salvation in the Gnostic sense, but it is a manifestation of the spirit that refuses to participate in the cruelty of matter. The second criticism is elitism, dividing humanity into pneumatics, spiritual, psychics, souled, and hylics, material, denies the equal dignity of all people. This can justify contempt for the lower types. Historically, this has led to dangerous consequences. Gnostic sects sometimes considered themselves superior to ordinary people, allowing themselves to violate generally accepted norms. This is a valid concern. Any system that sorts people into categories based on spiritual worth risks sliding into arrogance or even cruelty. But Gnostics might respond, "We are not creating this division. We are simply describing reality. Not all people are equal in a spiritual sense. This isn't a question of moral worth, but of ontology, the nature of being. A stone isn't to blame for not being a plant. A plant isn't to blame for not being an animal. A hylic is not to blame for lacking a spirit. It is simply a fact. Recognizing this fact doesn't mean calling for cruelty. It is simply honesty." The third criticism attacks the dualism itself. Dividing the world into the absolute good of the spirit and the absolute evil of matter simplifies reality too much. Perhaps matter isn't evil, but neutral. The problem might not be the body, but our identification with it. This criticism comes from more moderate philosophies that see matter as a school, a neutral environment for the spirit's development. The Gnostics were more radical. For them, matter actively opposes the spirit. It is not a neutral environment, it is a hostile force. Who is right? It depends on your interpretation of experience. If you see suffering as an accidental side effect of evolution, Gnostic dualism seems excessive. If you see suffering as inherent feature of material existence, Gnostic dualism seems logical. It is impossible to prove either position conclusively. It is a matter of worldview. The fourth criticism is the denial of the resurrection of the body. For Christians, the resurrection of the flesh is a central dogma. They believe Christ rose bodily, and all believers will rise in their bodies. Gnostics rejected this as absurd. Why would the spirit take on matter again after finally being freed? The resurrection of the body is a return to prison. True resurrection is the spiritual liberation of the pneuma from all material shells. Paul writes in his first epistle to the Corinthians, "There is a natural body, and there is a spiritual body." The Gnostics quoted this as proof. The spiritual body is not physical. It is a state of spirit without matter. But the Orthodox Church insisted that resurrection is literally bodily, that God will raise the same flesh that died. This conflict is irreconcilable. Either matter is a temporary shell to be discarded, or it is part of a divine plan to be transformed. The Gnostic answer is clear. If you want to live forever in matter, even if it is transformed, you haven't understood the nature of the prison. A renovated prison is still a prison. True freedom is beyond any form, material or spiritual. In the pleroma, there are no bodies. There is only pure being, consciousness without an object, light without a source. The fifth criticism is pessimism. Gnosticism presents the world as hopelessly corrupt. There is no way to improve it, only a way to escape it. This demoralizes people and renders any activity in the world meaningless. Christianity promises the redemption of all creation, that matter will be transformed and the kingdom of God will come to earth. This gives hope and motivation to work for change. Gnostics would respond, "Your hope is an illusion that keeps you in the cell. The world will not be fixed because it was crafted by an imperfect creator. The only redemption is individual liberation." Yes, this is pessimistic about the world, but it is realistic. Look at history. Wars, genocides, exploitation, and suffering never end. Every generation hopes for a better future, but the underlying structure remains the same. Maybe it is time to admit that the world cannot be fixed. You can only leave it. This debate has raged for 2,000 years without a winner. Each side offers a logically consistent system. The choice between them depends not on evidence, but on which picture of the world resonates with your deepest experience. If you feel the world is a home that needs renovation, Gnosticism will seem nihilistic to you. If you feel the world is a trap you need to survive, Gnosticism will seem like a revelation. Let us return to the practical question. What should you do if you recognize the Gnostic worldview? First, don't rush. Gnosis is not intellectual agreement with ideas. It is a profound experience that shifts the entire structure of consciousness. You can read every Gnostic text and remain the exact same. You can understand the logic without experiencing the truth. True Gnosis comes through practice, through years of working on yourself. Second, don't reject the world too quickly. Yes, Gnostics taught that the world is a prison, but you are still in it. A complete, abrupt rejection of matter can lead to self-destruction or madness. The Gnostic path is one of gradual disidentification, not a sharp break. You continue to live in the body, eat, sleep, and work, but internally the relationship changes. You stop identifying with these processes. You observe them. You use them, but you are not them. Third, seek out other pneumatics. The loneliness of the Gnostic path.
Knowledge is transmitted to those who ask for it, not to those you want to convert. Fifth, do not use Gnosticism as an excuse for immorality. Yes, the morality of the Demiurge is not absolute, but that does not mean you can do whatever you want. A true Gnostic does not cause suffering, not because it is forbidden by a commandment, but because the spirit is alien to violence. The difference is subtle, but vital. You follow not an external law, but your inner nature. And the nature of Pneuma is light, knowledge, freedom, and indestructibility. Sixth, be prepared for the fact that Gnosis will not bring happiness. It will bring knowing, and knowledge is often painful. When you see the world as a prison, you cannot return to naive comfort. When you become aware of the mechanisms of control, you cannot unconsciously succumb to them again. The blue pill offers oblivion and comfort. The red pill offers truth and discomfort. Most choose the blue without even knowing they are making a choice. Those who choose red pay the price. Seventh, don't expect quick results. Liberation from a prison in which you have spent your entire life, perhaps many lives, is not a matter of months or even years. It is a labor that can span a lifetime,
or perhaps several incarnations. Every step of disidentification, every moment of awareness is a movement toward the exit. But the movement is slow and difficult. The Archons do not let go easily. Attachments cling, desires return, and oblivion rolls over you in waves. Eighth, use modern tools. The Gnostics of 2,000 years ago did not have neuroscience, psychology, or the meditative techniques of Eastern traditions. You do. Combine the Gnostic worldview with modern practices. Vipassana meditation helps you observe your thoughts. Cognitive therapy helps you recognize automatic patterns. Psychedelics can provide visionary experiences beyond matter. Gnosticism is not dogmatic. It is open to any method that leads to gnosis. Ninth, don't forget compassion. Even if you see others as sleeping prisoners, they are still suffering. Your awakening does not make their pain any less real. If you can help without abandoning your own path, help. If you can't, at least don't add to their suffering. The world is cruel enough without your contribution. 10th, remember that Gnosticism is a map, not the territory. The Demiurge, the Archons, the Pleroma, these are models of reality, not necessarily literal entities with physical forms. They can be metaphors for psychological processes, cosmic forces, or social structures. What is important is not the literalness of the myth, but its ability to explain experience and provide tools for transformation. Don't get stuck in dogma. Gnosticism is, by definition, the enemy of dogma. The final question remains open. Are the Gnostics right? We cannot prove that Earth is a prison for souls. We cannot prove that the Demiurge exists. We cannot prove that the true God awaits beyond matter. These are all questions of faith, interpretation, and the choice between competing worldviews. But here is what we know for sure. The Gnostic model of reality is logically consistent. It explains the paradoxes that other systems cannot resolve. Why does an all-good God allow evil? Gnostics answer, because the world was not created by Him. Why is suffering built into the very structure of being? Because the Creator is imperfect. Why does man feel like a stranger in the world? Because he really is a stranger here. Every paradox is explained. Traditional religions require belief in what seems contradictory. Believe that God is good despite the evil. Believe that suffering has meaning even though it is hidden. Believe that justice will prevail even though it is invisible. Gnosticism does not require such blind faith. It offers a model where all visible evil is explainable. The world is cruel because its architect is cruel. There is no hidden benevolent plan, no higher justice that will manifest later. There is only a prison and those who try to escape from it. Whether this is a cold truth or a comforting lie depends on what you consider to be the truth. If the truth is what corresponds to your actual experience, then for many, Gnosticism is true. The world is indeed full of suffering. Most people do indeed live as sleepwalkers, never asking deep questions. Power structures keep the masses in obedience through fear, desire, and ignorance. All of this can be explained without the Demiurge and the Archons, but the Gnostic model gives it meaning and direction. Can we find at least indirect confirmation of the Gnostic picture in the modern world? Let us look at a phenomenon that psychologists call the existential crisis. A person suddenly realizes the absurdity of existence. He was born without his consent, lives by rules he did not choose, and is moving toward a death he does not want. Everything that seemed important, career, money, status, loses its meaning. Only one question remains: what is the point of it all? Gnostics would call this the first awakening. It is a crack in the prison wall, the moment when the spirit begins to remember. Most people cope with this crisis in three ways. The first is to dive back into material things, find new desires, new goals, new distractions. Buy a car, start a romance, change jobs. The Archons are satisfied. The prisoner has returned to hibernation. The second way is to find a religion or ideology that provides ready-made answers. God loves you. Everything has meaning. Just believe. The Demiurge is satisfied. The prisoner has accepted his rules as divine. The third way is to continue asking questions, digging deeper, looking for answers beyond the familiar. This is the Gnostic path. It is the most difficult because it offers no comfort. Modern culture mass produces distractions, entertainment, social networks, and an endless stream of information designed to never let you stop and think. Gnostics would see this as the work of the Archons through new technologies. The goal is the same: to prevent people from realizing their situation, to keep them busy, excited, and constantly craving the next dose of dopamine. The more distractions, the stronger the prison. Modern people spend hours in front of screens, endlessly scrolling, liking, commenting. They think they are free because they can choose the content, but this is the freedom of a prisoner to choose between cells. Or take the phenomenon of depression. It has become an epidemic in developed countries. Millions of people feel deep apathy, a lack of meaning, and a reluctance to live. Psychiatry explains this as a chemical imbalance and prescribes antidepressants. Psychology talks about trauma, incorrect attitudes, and cognitive distortions. But what if depression is the natural reaction of the awakening spirit to the prison? The spirit sees the absurdity of material existence and refuses to play this game. The body continues to live, but the spirit retreats. Gnostics would say that depression is not a disease, but a symptom of a person beginning to see the truth. Of course, this is a dangerous interpretation. It can lead to a refusal of treatment and deeper suffering. Depression is truly destructive, and chemical interventions are sometimes necessary. But the Gnostic view adds another layer. Perhaps the soul suffers not from a breakdown, but from an awakening. And if so, the real cure is not a return to hibernation through pills, but moving forward through gnosis. Not suppressing the symptom, but understanding its meaning.
The phenomenon of near-death experiences is also fascinating from a Gnostic perspective. People who have clinically died often tell the same story: leaving the body, traveling through a tunnel, seeing a light, meeting beings, reviewing their lives, and finally returning. Materialists explain this as oxygen deprivation, or a flood of neurotransmitters in a dying brain. Religious believers see it as proof of heaven, but a Gnostic sees something else: the beginning of the passage through the Archon spheres. The tunnel is the threshold between worlds. The beings of light, Archons wearing a comforting disguise. The life review, a parole hearing to determine if you are submissive enough to be recycled. Those who returned didn't pass the test. They lacked the gnosis to refuse the cycle, so they were sent back to the body. This is speculation, of course, not proof, but it shows how the Gnostic model can integrate modern phenomena. The question isn't, is this interpretation objectively true, but is it useful? If the Gnostic model helps you navigate your experience, if it gives you tools for transformation, then it is true for you in a pragmatic sense.
However, we must be intellectually honest about the weaknesses of Gnosticism. First and foremost, it is unverifiable. There is no experiment to prove the existence of the Demiurge. You cannot measure an Archon. The pleroma sits beyond all empirical experience. This makes Gnosticism a matter of faith, just like any other religion. The difference is that Gnostics claimed to have knowledge, not faith. But gnosis is a subjective experience. It cannot be communicated, repeated in a lab, or verified by a third party. One person says, "I have seen the truth." Another says, "No, you had a hallucination." There is no objective judge to settle that dispute. The second weakness is that Gnosticism can become an excuse for passivity. If the world is a hopeless hellscape, why try to improve it? This leads to social indifference. Christianity, despite all its flaws, built hospitals, schools, and shelters. It taught people to care for their neighbors because it believed the world had value. Gnosticism didn't build institutions. Its focus was solely on escape. You could argue this is more honest. Everyone is responsible for themselves, but it is certainly colder and less functional for society. The third weakness is elitism. It breeds arrogance. If you believe you are a pneumatic and others are just hylics, it is easy to start looking down on them. I am awake, you are cattle. This divides people and creates spiritual pride, the most dangerous ego trap in any tradition. A true Gnostic would understand that these categories are not about merit, but ontology. You aren't better than a hylic, you are just different. But human nature tends to turn difference into hierarchy. The fourth weakness is that denying matter can lead to nihilism. If the body is a prison, why take care of it? Some Gnostic sects practiced starvation and self-torture. Others indulged in extreme debauchery, claiming the spirit cannot be tainted by the flesh. Both paths are dangerous. The body may be a prison cell, but while you are in it, it is also your only tool. Destroying the tool before the work is done is simply foolish. The fifth weakness, Gnosticism offers a seductive victimhood. You aren't suffering because you made mistakes. You are suffering because you are a chosen spirit in an evil world. This removes personal responsibility. It is easier to blame the Demiurge than to fix your own life. It is easier to say the universe is rigged than to do the work. Gnosticism can become a cosmic excuse for avoiding reality. Recognizing these flaws, we have to ask, is there anything valuable left? Yes. Even if the cosmology is a myth, the metaphor is powerful. It validates the deep sense of alienation many people feel. It offers tools for self-observation that work regardless of your metaphysics. It teaches radical critical thinking. Don't trust the priests. Don't trust the books. Don't trust the consensus. Verify everything through your own experience. This is dangerous because it undermines authority, but it is liberating because it places the truth inside you, not in an institution. Gnosticism teaches us to look at the world soberly, without romantic illusions. The world is cruel. Suffering is real. Most people are sleepwalking. This isn't a reason for despair. It's a starting point. False hope is a tighter cage than despair, because despair forces you to look for a way out, while false hope convinces you that everything is fine. Gnosticism confronts us with the hard truth that salvation is individual. No one is coming to save you, not a messiah, not a politician, not a guru. Salvation is work you do within your own consciousness. It sounds lonely, but it is honest. Ultimately, we all walk the path alone. So, were the Gnostics right? Is Earth a prison? After analyzing thousands of pages of text and comparing them with modern life, we reach an unexpected conclusion. The question is wrong. It doesn't matter if the Gnostics were literally right. What matters is that their model describes a psychological reality. The conflict between spiritual hunger and physical desire is real. The feeling that the world is unfair is real. The experience of awakening, when the facade of society crumbles and you see the machinery underneath, is real. The Gnostics gave this experience a name and a map. You don't have to take the map literally to use it. Is Earth a prison? For those who feel imprisoned, yes. For those who feel at home, no. Truth, in this sense, is subjective. But subjective does not mean false. If the Gnostic model resonates with you, then it is true for you, not as a scientific fact, but as an existential direction. We started by asking, what if they are right? We end by seeing that they are both right and wrong. They were right about the struggle, the control, and the longing for freedom. They were wrong to claim this is the only truth. Reality is broader than any single model. Gnosticism is just one lens. It is a powerful, dark, provocative lens that reveals what others try to hide. But what you do with what you see is up to you. You can reject it as fantasy and go back to sleep. You can embrace it fully and dedicate your life to the escape. Or you can take what works, the skepticism, the self-knowledge, the inner search, and build your own path. The door is open. Walking through it is your choice.
There is no single right answer because every path is unique. Yet the Gnostics were correct about one fundamental thing. Salvation is an individual task. No one can walk your path for you. If, after hearing all of this, you feel a sense of resonance, anxiety, curiosity, or even rejection, that is already a beginning. Indifference would mean the signal didn't reach the deep waters of your psyche, but a reaction, any reaction, proves that something inside you has responded. The Gnostics would call this the awakening of the divine spark. Modern psychology might call it cognitive dissonance. The label doesn't matter. What matters is that a door has cracked open. Whether you walk through it or slam it shut is entirely your choice. 2,000 years ago, a group of visionaries looked at the world and saw a prison cell. They drafted a map for escape, encoding it into myths, symbols, and secret practices. The institutional church destroyed their texts, but it couldn't kill their ideas. Why? Because ideas don't live on paper. They live in human experience. And as long as people feel like strangers in this reality, as long as they question the nature of existence, as long as they hunt for a way out of suffering, the Gnostic impulse will be reborn again and again, wearing different names. Perhaps you are one of those who carry this impulse in your blood. Perhaps finding this content wasn't a coincidence, but a necessary step in the process of remembering. The Gnostics believed that knowledge acts like a magnet,
attracting those ready to receive it. The book finds the reader. The teacher appears when the student is ready. If you are still listening, something led you here. Call it chance, call it the algorithm, call it synchronicity, or call it Sophia whispering from the pleroma. The name is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is what you do next. Will you forget this in a day, plunging back into the comfortable flow of your routine? Or will you start to notice things you were blind to before? The subtle mechanisms of control in society, the automatic loops of your own mind, the patterns of fear and desire, the very structure of the prison that becomes visible only when you know where to look. The Gnostics said, knowledge changes the one who knows. You cannot unlearn the truth. You cannot remain the same. A door once opened can never be fully closed again. You might try to force it shut, and you might succeed for a while, but a crack will remain. Light will seep through it, or darkness, depending on what stands on the other side. We cannot give you a definitive answer. We can only show you that the rabbit hole goes deeper than it seems. Is Earth a prison for souls? The data points seem in that direction. Logic leads there too. The visceral experience of millions confirms the feeling of entrapment. But proof is impossible. Faith is required either way. You either believe the world is your home, or you believe the world is a prison. Both beliefs actively shape the reality of the believer. So choose consciously. This choice determines more than just your worldview. It determines the trajectory of your life, and quite possibly what awaits you after death. If the Gnostics are right, the choice between oblivion and knowledge is the single most critical decision you will ever make. If they're wrong, you have nothing to lose. The search for truth is valuable in itself. For 1,500 years, ancient texts lay silent in the desert, waiting for someone who could truly hear them. Now they have spoken. The message has been delivered. What happens next is up to you.